House Bill 1413, which is a big part of today's conversation, is a bill that was introduced and it establishes the Kit Backlog Fund to provide assistance to law enforcement agencies and testing labs to eliminate that backlog of untested rape kits. So, could both of you talk a little bit about the significance of what this bill would mean for survivors of sexual assault, and how it will impact the larger movement towards justice and accountability in cases of sexual violence? I know you just mentioned there are criminals walking around. Do you see the potential for people getting prosecuted, or because it's been so long with this backlog that they might get to walk free if it's past the statute?
I mean, it is a real problem that you have such a short statute of limitations because these kits, I mean, we uncovered the 5,000 kits in 2014. Um, do the math. I mean, some of these kits, they're still struggling at the Indianapolis Crime Lab. We were there a couple of years ago and they still had about 5,000 kits because more are coming in. And if you're not keeping up, you're not keeping up. And so recognizing that those cases are likely not going to be able to be prosecuted. That does mean that those offenders get away with that particular assault. Now, the one thing that's important to recognize, though, is about how the DNA database works. So I won't get too technical, but if you put rape kits, the DNA found in the rape kits in the DNA database, Indiana has their own, and then there's the one that's national that it's connected to. That DNA may connect to the DNA of a previously convicted offender. And so that's how the database works, is you make matches between these DNA profiles. What we often see then is that it might match to another case and another case and another case.
Oh.
And so you can maybe potentially match to a case that's still within the statute of limitations and, go after it from that perspective. It also just gives law enforcement knowledge about this offender, right? So they may, I mean, Cleveland and Detroit and other places that have been testing their backlog have found a ridiculous number of serial offenders that have been committing crimes over decades. There was one in particular in Cleveland that had, I think, 27 kids connect. And if you think about that as probably, a quarter, it's a quarter of the people are reporting. And then that's really, it's really scary. So just in terms of kind of identifying and prosecuting serial offenders, it makes it so much easier to prosecute these offenders when you have that DNA evidence that is connecting up. Because in some cases, you might have this, what we sometimes just call he said, she said case, right? Where they know each other in some way. But then if you get crimes that are connecting to each other, then you get he said, she said, she said, she said, and it builds a case. And that way it might be easier for prosecutors to take on those cases. So, there are a lot of reasons to continue to test these backlog kits, even if you find that the statute of limitations has run out.
One of my favorite examples that the Joyful Heart Foundations and the Backlog website talks about is in Ohio, and we've pulled this a lot and talked about it a lot as we've been meeting with legislators, is when Ohio passed similar legislation that we're seeing, like House Bill 1413, it resulted in the prosecution of 511 serial rapists.
Yeah.
With like 812 indictments.
Yeah.
And so the idea that that the opposition to this bill is like, oh, it's just women who are claiming something happened. No, when you can point to 511 cases that had multiple rape kits tied to them, that's not just a couple that got in a disagreement and the woman's trying to get back. Like
Right.
it's really a tool to really bring to justice those individuals who are committing sexual violence after sexual violence after sexual violence. So that's why we are very passionate about both House Bill 1413 and Senate Bill 151 with the statute of limitations making it through this session.
Yeah. No, this is amazing work that's happening too. Ideally it'll pass in the Senate. I don't know if it has yet.
So House Bill 14 has made it through the House. So now it's going to the Senate, and Senate Bill 151 has made it through the Senate and now needs to go through the House. So House Bill 1413 needs to go through the Corrections and Criminal Law Committee, and the statute of limitations needs to go through the same named committee on the House side.
Got it. Yeah. No, that is great news. I know it's I interviewed someone about a movie that was dealing with this kind of topic, and what someone had said, and I think it's a pretty common saying amongst sexual violence survivors, is that like you feel violated the first time, obviously, by the initial instance of it, and then it's like a second violation when there's no justice from the system that's supposed to protect you or at least prosecute, the offenders. So ideally, we'll start to see some progress in that.
Yeah.
Let Zach take it away to the next question here.
Can I
And
just
this
add
next,
to that? Can I add to that for 1 second?
Yeah, of
sure.
Because I
course.
think it's such an important point is, and what our founder always says is that the rape kit backlog is a demonstration of
Mhm.
how the criminal justice system and our society treats these crimes. So you think about a kit sitting on a shelf, it's literally and figuratively, right, shelving what happened to rape victims. And so when we're not testing these kits, we're sending a terrible message to survivors that what happened to them didn't matter. And also to offenders, right? If they're here, they're not testing rape kits, we're just basically giving them a free pass.